Today I'm going to read to you from my novel, Diaries of a Dead African. And this is a novel comprised of 3 diaries. It's written by 3 men, all related by blood. The first is written by memep28.mpg. Meme hasn't any problem at all, except that he is a farmer on hard times whose wife has just left him. Now, he wouldn't have been so upset except for the fact that she left him for a vulcanizer. Now, she also left him with all the yams in his barn, and all he has left is 1 tuber, and he has 7 days yet to go before harvest. I'll read from 8th June 2000. 1 tuber left and 7 days to go. God will help his own. This afternoon I left the farm early to attend the funeral of my distant cousin, Johnny Man. For a poor man, it was a well-attended burial, although most people turned out to see the coffin rather than the corpse. Johnny Man died last December, but because his son was in Rome, our greedy elders refused to bury him. Bury him, bury him, his age grade kept pressing, but no. The elders wanted to eat Italian lira. They knew that once Johnny Man was inside the ground, it would be impossible to squeeze anything from his son. So they took him to the mortuary and left him there. Like kidnappers waiting for a ransom. Imagine that. For 5 months, a man who died of hunger has been sleeping naked in a corpse's dormitory, whose room rate was higher than the biggest hotel in Warri. It was last week that the elders finally realized that Johnny Man's son, who had abandoned his father in life, had also abandoned him in death. I don't know how they settled the mortuary bill. What I know is that I'm not paying any levy. If they like, they can ostracize me, because I didn't join them to scheme for lira. Why am I writing all these things? It's because this afternoon I attended Johnny Man's burial. It was a proper poor man's burial. If you want to see people dancing reluctantly, then you should attend a pauper's funeral. Today, Johnny Man's mourners were dancing purely out of duty, because no one was going to smell food or beer after the dance. The dead man's body was lying in state in Ifetu's casket. Now, Ifetu was another of our cousins. People used to call him a wicked man, but that was a naked lie, because ordinarily wicked people would never have allowed him to enter their meeting place. In fact, known wizards were careful not to quarrel with Ifetu for fear of hemorrhoids, which were his preferred means of afflicting his enemies. Ifetu knew he had no friends. He also knew Ikere's penchant for avenging people's misdeeds on their corpses. So he bought himself an expensive coffin, which he stored under his bed. He also dug and plastered a shallow grave right there in his courtyard. He figured that whatever grievances his neighbors nursed against him, eventually when his corpse started to stink, someone would eventually tip him into his coffin and push him into his grave. Unfortunately, a drunken driver crushed him last week in faraway Ikpoti, where he had gone to collect his rents. What was left of his corpse had been festering since then, but the stink of it hasn't disturbed anyone in Ikere enough to bring him home to his beautiful casket. As for Johnny Man, kind pauper though he was, nobody was willing to contribute a kobo for his funeral after the lira fiasco. So the elders commandeered Ifetu's coffin for his burial, which is how come Johnny Man was lying in state in a coffin more expensive than the house he had died in. When I went to see Johnny Man's body, I shivered. And I realized why they say that a chick should heed the fate of his elder cousins at Christmas, because that would be her fate come Easter. One look at Johnny Man's bony head, and I also realized why they say that it is only what a person eats that he carries to his grave. Johnny Man's other children have been peddling the story that their father died of AIDS. What I want to know is, where did Johnny Man get AIDS? Do people get AIDS from eating cassava peel? Nonsense and 10 pence. People just try to win unnecessary sentiments for nothing's sake, posing with a big man's disease, as if it's hard to recognize the body of a person who died of hunger.